Awesome. Okay, everybody, welcome to our 4-H in the Field meeting today. We have Mike Johnson here, who's one of my friends, and he is going to be talking about photography and what he does for a living. So I am just going to let him go for it. And then if you guys have questions, remember to either chat them directly to me or, just ask to be unmuted if you want to ask it if you want to ask it out loud. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and let you take over. Mike, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, you're good. I'm just figuring out how to turn on chat here so I can see if they have questions too. Hi kids, my name is Mike Johnson. I am a photographer here in Cache Valley. I figured today, unless you guys have questions and want to change our direction, I kind of tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do. And then talk about like a little bit how I got there, kind of the education it took to become a photographer, and then see if you guys have questions. Does that sound good? A few nods. Okay. Alicia, I have parakeets. Are they being super noisy?
Nah, you're fine. They're cute.
Okay, perfect. They're over there like squawking away. I'm just making sure they're not too loud. Okay, perfect. So once again, like I said, my name is Mike Johnson. I actually do photography and video, so we'll probably talk a little bit about both of those. I have been shooting in Cache Valley full-time now for about 7 years. I started kind of into photography in high school, realistically. I originally took Photo 1 in high school, but then I kind of decided I want to do something else and went to college and studied a few other things, kind of bounced around. And then kind of circled back to photography again in college again. And I shot part-time for a couple of years, and then it was about 6.5, 7 years ago, I went full-time. Most of what I shoot on a daily basis is what we'd call commercial work, which is like your business to business, your advertising. When you guys see I don't do the TV ads, but when you see like ads on TVs, or like when you see like advertisements for companies, like pictures and they've got ads on them, like words and stuff like that. So most of what I do is commercial advertising. So we help companies, sell their products or bring awareness to their products or their services. And then I obviously do like some family photos and, high school seniors and weddings and stuff like that too. Is there a way, Alicia, to share my screen?
Yeah, I have to make you the host, but then
Okay.
that's it. So 1 second.
Is it okay if I just pull up a little bit of I was just going to pull up my website.
Yep, I'm going to make you a host. So then now you'll be able to share your screen.
Okay.
So down at the bottom.
There we go. Share screen. Yep. We're going to go. Sure. Share. Hold on. My computer says I have to open system preferences and allow it to share.
It'll tell you have to restart, but you don't actually have to restart.
Okay. Perfect. Could you tell my face there that I was reading that going, oh crap?
Well, I just know you're on a Mac, and that's what I did, so.
Okay, let's share. We'll just share my desktop here. Okay, so we're going to pop over here to, can you guys see it? Mm-hmm. My email. There we go. So this is just my website. I was just going to show you a few things on here just to kind of show you what I do. So most of what I do, we'll go to the commercial work here and just kind of scroll through my portfolio. So I do a lot of real estate photography. Most of the real estate photography I do is with home builders. So when people are selling the houses they're building, we'll do the advertising for them. I do a lot of product photography. So selling, this is for a company that sells recipes. And so we made up a few of the recipes and tried to make this bread look as delicious as possible. So that we could put this on their packaging and their online advertising. And then I do quite a bit of food photography and then some more product photography. And then I do a lot of service photography where we're showing, services for people's websites. So this was obviously for a dentist, and we have done, dentists and doctors and whatnot. Some of the cooler things that I've done that you kids might think is kind of fun. I got hired by Samsung. I'm sure most of you know who Samsung is, to shoot at I always get it wrong now. What's it called? The Energy Solutions Arena. Is anyone a jazz fan? Any show of hands if you're a jazz fan? A little bit? No? But I got hired to go shoot all their screens when they put new screens in there, which was pretty fun. I don't have a ton of pictures on here, but I've been hired to go shoot like hunts for companies. Some of you boys may like this one. I've done some work for some welding shops and machine shops where we've done some advertising work for them too. We'll have that go to the bottom there. So I do a lot of that, and then I do video as well. And so we'll mute this one, but we'll play just a little bit of this video here. So one of the big things that I try to do as a business is do photo and video for people, so that they can save a little bit of budget and hire one person to come in and make a whole bunch of new content for them. So this was a video I shot last year for a farm in Washington State. They make, oh, I'm killing my internet. They grow alfalfa for racehorses, which is it was kind of a unique thing that they did. And so it looks like it doesn't want to do, I'm uploading a project in the background too. So that's a little bit of the commercial side of things, and then we'll just pop over here and I'll just show you. So I obviously, like I said, I still do weddings and family photos, and high school senior photos. So this is a wedding I did a couple of years ago. And we've got like a senior photo that I shot for this girl, family photos and whatnot as well. Are these coming through okay, Alicia? Did they pop up?
They're perfect.
So that's a little bit about me and what I shoot. I kind of do a little bit of everything. We'll stop sharing here. And you can still host back if you want, Alicia.
Okay.
So I do a little bit of everything. But like I said, most of what I focus on advertising is commercial work. Do you guys have any questions about any of that before we talk about a few other things?
Are there any questions, you guys?
Nope. Okay. So let's talk a little about how I ended up as a photographer. I actually, like I said earlier, I took a photography class in high school, and I actually didn't really love it. I thought the class it just didn't catch my interest. I took it because it sounded kind of fun, and I didn't really love it. And then graduated high school, went to college, and I actually started going to college to do engineering. And I wanted to go be probably a mechanical, was kind of where I was leaning, maybe structural. I thought that kind of stuff was really interesting. So I actually grew up down in Salt Lake area, moved up to Logan to go to school, and realized one of the big things it was really twofold. Is one, I don't love math, and I realized engineers do lots of math, and I don't love being inside all day. And so I started kind of looking for other jobs. And I looked at marketing a little bit, and I looked at, communications and human relations, like HR stuff. Trying to find something that was a little bit less math intensive. And also I didn't want to sit at a desk all day. And so while I was in college doing that, I bought a camera and started shooting weddings because I thought it sounded kind of fun and like an easy way to pay for college, and really kind of just fell in love with it. It wasn't the goal I had with life. It just kind of found a way to make money to pay for college, and decided that was going to be my job when I got out of college. So education-wise, to be a photographer, I actually have never studied photography and like formally. Most of what I've learned, I learned either through like mentors and working with other photographers I know, or just online like self-directed learning. So YouTube and blogs and websites and trainings that you can buy online. So I don't have any formal education in photography. Most of it was just kind of self-taught or apprenticed and learned on the side. Depending on if you wanted to go into like a job in the photo video world, there are a lot of jobs that do require that you have an education in photography, and there's some great schools in Utah that offer degrees in education in photography. I know that BYU, I know we don't like that in Cache Valley, right? But they do have a pretty good program, and the Utah Valley University has a pretty good program in photography as well. BYU actually has a fantastic film program, so if you're looking, like if you wanted to go into, like working on Hollywood sets or, big movie productions, BYU has a great program to get you into those locations. So there is options to do formal education in photography, but I do find it kind of an interesting career because you don't necessarily need a formal education. You can kind of just start doing it by yourself and figure it out, which I personally really, really liked. And so I started about 7 years ago and quit my job and went full time. And that's what I do full time at this point. When I started out doing photography, I really thought that it'd be like every day I'd be out shooting. Because you guys probably think like, oh, I'm a photographer. Most of the time I'm out taking pictures, right? But I quickly learned that most of my time is meetings and emails and talking to clients and working with clients and planning and storyboarding and scripting and planning for shoots. And a lot less of my time is shooting. But I actually still really like that. I just got back this afternoon from a meeting with a client that we're planning on doing a whole series of videos for them. And so we spent, a couple hours planning and scripting and coming up with some ideas so that we can start refining those for videos. And so an average day for me in work realistically consists of, most days I will spend a couple hours emailing and doing meetings. I would say 2 to 3 hours of emails, phone calls, and meetings most days. And then a lot of days I'll spend 4 to 5 hours editing. Because obviously if you take the pictures of video, then you've got to make them look pretty, right? Because they're not perfect right out of the camera. And so I'll spend 4 to 5 hours editing, and then most days it's 2, 3, maybe 4 hours of shooting, which you'll notice doesn't add up to 8 hours. And most days I do way more than 8 hours, 8 hours of work. How many of you guys are interested in like being a photographer? Would that be something you guys would want to do for work? A little bit, maybe? Some shrugs and a little bit. Yeah. And I get that. And it's kind of, I remember being your age and having no idea what I wanted to do for work. So if you'd asked me back then, I would have said, I have no idea too. But I found it interesting when I started doing it full time that it was a lot less shooting than I originally thought, and a lot more editing and emailing. But that's kind of a typical day. Obviously, every once in a while, I'll get like a full day or 2 day shoots where we'll spend 2 or 3 days, on set with the client shooting projects for them. And then after that, I'll spend, 4 or 5 days editing that project for them. So it kind of balances out to that little bit of scheduling, I guess. Any questions you guys have on that at all? No?
You guys are super quiet today. Here,
No,
can you talk about your travel a little bit? You've probably done some travel with photography.
Yeah. That's one thing that I really like about my job that my wife doesn't like as much. But I do get to travel a little bit for my job, which is kind of fun. Just in the last year, some of the fun locations and jobs that I did. I showed you that farm video, and that was really fun. That was in central Washington State, so just a couple hours away, but I think I spent 4 days on their farm. And so they wanted content during harvest season. And so I flew in and lived with this family on their farm for 4 days, which I love that aspect of my job, of that I get to really spend time in people's lives, whether it's their job or their personal life, and kind of get to see how they live the world. And it was really, really fun to spend 4 days, with them, waking up before sunrise to get out and harvest and milk the cows, and staying up till after sunset to finish harvesting and live that farm life for a couple of days, run around on tractors and ATVs. And I got incredibly sunburnt, and it was super fun. So that was a really fun one. Not long before that, I got hired to shoot a caribou hunt up in Alaska. And I'm not a big hunter myself, but this company hired me and said they wanted this caribou hunt filmed so they could advertise their camouflage, their camo for their company. And so we spent, I think, 11 days. Excuse me. We flew in into Alaska, and then we flew even further in these little tiny bush planes that only had seats for 3 people. And we landed out in the middle of the Arctic Circle in the tundra and spent 11 days hiking around, hunting for caribou. And that was really fun. It was a camping trip of a lifetime to go up and see the Arctic Circle and see herds of millions of caribou, which was pretty cool. And then, like, on the opposite flip side of that, last fall I shot for a company that's based out of Provo. They make health supplements, and they did a rewards trip to their employees. So the employees that sold the most, they got to go on a trip. And their trip was to the Dominican Republic down in the Caribbean, and they hired me to come down on that trip with them. And this trip was basically like just them treating their employees to everything fun. And they wanted me to make a video to show how fun their employees had on this trip, so that they could try to get more employees to sell more to go on those trips. So that one was, I think, 4 days that I got to stay in a super nice hotel and hang out on the beach and feed little monkeys in the jungle and went swimming in the ocean. And that was super fun, because I basically just carried my camera around while everyone else had fun and partied. And I didn't get to party and have as much fun, but I still got to have quite a bit of fun, hanging out with them for a few days, shooting their video and then some photos for them on that trip. So that was really, really fun. And I don't get to travel a ton for work, but most years there's a couple trips that I get to go on that they kind of come out of the blue, and you're like, oh, well, I never really thought I'd go to the Arctic Circle, or I never thought I'd go to, the Dominican Republic, but they're kind of a fun way to like mix up the year a little bit, to go somewhere for a week, which I think is really, really fun.
Awesome.
So I see a question here. Is that where you're
go
headed?
ahead. You want to read the question and then answer it?
Yep. I'll read it out loud. So it says, what did you do in your Photo 1 class? What did you not like? What did you like about it? If you could retake it, what would you do differently? That's a really good question. So what I didn't like about my Photo 1 class, looking back on it, is it was mostly film, which makes me sound really old. But I took that class in 2006, I think it was 2007. And so digital photography was around, but it wasn't as prolific and common as it is now. And so while that class was fun to do the darkroom stuff and the digital and then the film photography and whatnot, I didn't love that as much. I do really like the photo editing side and the Photoshop and the retouching images. And that class, when I took it, was 99% film based. And so I didn't love it. And I think that was probably one of the big reasons, is I just thought that the digital photography aspect was cooler because it was new, and I felt like that was kind of where things were going, which they were. And the class was just I felt a little bit dated for what we were doing. But what did I like? What I did like taking the photos, and we did a little bit of Photoshop, which I thought was really fun. And it was a really good, starter to learn the basics of, what makes a good image. Like, what are some things we can look for, and what are some aspects of images that make them a good quality image. And so it was really good to learn that stuff. If I retook it, I would assume at this point they'd be digital, so I probably would enjoy it a lot more. But at the time, like I said, it was film. So
can you explain the difference between film and digital?
Sure. Yeah. So have any of you kids ever like shot a film photo, or even seen a film camera? Do you guys know what those are? Yes, no? No? Okay, so back in the olden days, you would take pictures on film cameras. So like right now we've got like our cameras and our phones and everything, but 20, 30 years ago, when you took a picture, you had to load in film into the picture, into the camera. And what that film did is it was actually a piece of photosensitive paper, essentially. And when you took the picture and the shutter on the camera opened, it would let the light in and it would expose that film. And then it would basically save that image to the film. And I'm not like a chemical engineer, so I don't know the whole process of it. But essentially, you would expose that film, and then you would take that film, because that film was light sensitive, and you couldn't let it see any other light. You would go into what we call the dark room. And a dark room is what it sounds like. It's a room you'd have either in your house or your business, depending on where you did. And it was this room with no lights and no windows, and it was completely dark in there. And so you'd go into this dark room and you would pull your film out of your camera because it couldn't see any light. And then you'd use what they call the projector to shine a light through that film. After you processed it, you'd shine light through the film onto another piece of photo paper. So you could turn that little tiny film from inside the camera into a bigger print. So film was all chemical based, and using light and chemicals and papers to produce images. Whereas now it's digital, and so we have digital image sensors like we have in our phone, or like you're using in your laptop right now, which digitally record the world, and then it saves it as a digital signal, and then we can stream over the internet. So 20 years ago, I guess 30 years ago, when film was really in its heyday, you couldn't even do a meeting like this because the camera that's in your laptop or your phone you're using right now didn't exist. And they had to, every time you took a picture, you'd have to go into a dark room and develop it. And with video, it was just lots of pictures in a row and you do the same thing. But then digital sensors came around, and now it's super easy to stream over the internet. But I think it's interesting that I took photo 1 in high school, which was 2006-ish, so 14 years ago. And digital cameras actually were invented in like 1974, I think. But it took like 30 years for those cameras to become commonplace, to where you'd see them in people's phones, which is kind of crazy to think about, in my opinion, that it took that long for them to take off. So do you guys have any other questions a little bit right now?
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
How did you get like out in the open and get customers? to take photos of? And what is your favorite camera to use, and why do you like it? Like the details on what it does.
Sure. Those are great questions. Thank you. So getting started, if you actually want to like have a business and make money, is super hard. I'll be honest. Like finding those people who are willing to say, here's, $100 or $200 or, $5,000, make us some videos or make us some photos. That's the first 5 are really hard to find. The easiest way is really to find family and friends who are willing to vouch for you, essentially. And so you'll have someone who says, hey, yeah, no, Mike is good at this. I trust him and you trust me, so you should trust him too. And so using those connections at the beginning is very, very important. And they're still important. Most of my business still comes on a referral basis, which means I'll take pictures for a client and they'll like what I did. And so they'll tell their friends, and then their friends will hire me. And that's how I get most of my customers. And it is how I got my first couple. I do think it's very important to have a website, which I pulled up for you guys briefly, because even if Alicia tells you that Mike's a great photographer, you probably want to go look at my website and make sure that you also think I'm a good photographer. So having a place for people to view your work is very important. But I think having happy customers who are willing to refer you and leave reviews is very, very important. The first couple things, like I look back and the first couple of like family photos I did and stuff when I was starting out, they were for people in the neighborhood I grew up in, or people I met in college were the first couple weddings I shot. And so those personal connections were the first couple, and then hopefully you make them happy enough that they'll tell their friends. And then you just kind of continue to grow that network of people who are willing to hire you. My camera's actually sitting right here, so let's pull 2 of them out to answer your other question. So I shoot mostly on Sony cameras. I put tape over my camera brands because when I travel to places like the Dominican Republic, I don't want people to know I have an expensive camera. And so I cover them in like pieces. I don't know if you can see this, like tape. And I had this tape on here. I make my cameras look crappy because then people are less likely to steal them when you're on an airplane with them. But I shoot with Sony cameras. So this is the Sony a7 III, and then I shoot with this Sony a7R4 as well, for those of you that know cameras at all. The reason I shoot on Sony cameras is they're really, really small. And when I do travel for work, or if I hike in to a place for a location, I like cameras that are pretty small and that are easy to carry, and they don't weigh very much. And so it's nice to have a small camera. And then Sony cameras, that one of the big reasons I switched over, they were some of the first cameras that were really good at doing photo and video. So when I started shooting Sony 5-6 years ago, the reason I used to shoot on Canon, and before that I shot on Nikon, but Sony kind of was one of the ones that really pushed making high quality video and photo in the same camera. So this camera can do pictures, but it can also do video. And that's the reason I switched to Sony. And then once you end up with lenses like this one that are expensive, you don't want to buy this lens for a Canon camera and a Sony camera because it only goes to the Sony. So once you have your lenses, you're kind of, I still like Sony, but you get kind of stuck with a brand because your lenses work with them, and lenses are more expensive than the camera. So that's the camera I use for for photo. And then let me pull over another case here. This is the camera I use for video. This is actually a brand new company, which I find kind of interesting. Oh, I'm dropping things. Nothing expensive though. This is my video camera. And this is by a company called Zcam. They're actually out of China. But it's a great little camera. And you guys have probably seen cameras kind of like this when you look at like movie sets and whatnot, right? These bigger cameras. And one of the reasons you end up with a camera that's this big for photo that can do video, and then a camera this big for video, is because this camera has a really big battery. This whole back piece is a battery. And when you're shooting video for hours and hours on end, having a battery that doesn't die is really important. Because if you're shooting maybe like a clip for a whole hour, or if you think back on like the caribou hunt I filmed, if I'm filming those caribou and they're running through the field and it's a perfect moment and my camera battery runs out, like with a video clip, it stops and then I'd have to put a new battery and restart. Whereas the photo, I can take a couple photos and then swap a battery. Whereas with video, you really don't want it to be interrupted, and so you need a big battery. And then this up here is just my monitor, because with video, you really want to be able to see, you can do a lot more editing with photo to fix things. And so it's okay if you just use your little screen that's on the back here, but with video, editing's a little bit harder to fix things in post. So you usually want a bigger screen so that you can see what you're doing a little bit better. And then there's like handles and whatnot, just so I can hold it nice and steady, and so we don't get a really shaky video. So that's the camera I use for video. The reason I like this one, to Mariana, is that what your name is?
It's actually pronounced Mariana.
Mariana, that's pretty.
Yeah,
I was bothering, I'm sorry. The reason I like this camera for video is the Zcam brand and camera. They're pretty affordable right now because they're a new company, and so they are trying to, get new customers. So they're selling their product fairly inexpensively, but it does perform very, very well. So that's why I use that one. Does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, yeah. You guys have any other questions?
Anybody else? So obviously your stuff is super expensive. So let's say they wanted to do something. What would you start them out on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say start on your phone. Do you guys have phones, or do your parents have phones that they let you use? So let's actually pull up my phone here. I think it's funny because this camera that's in my phone actually takes better pictures than pretty much every camera I had in my life up until the last 6 years. And so while I do have $1,000 cameras, when I go on vacation with my wife, or we go camping or we go hiking, 99% of the time I take this, because this is capable of taking really good photos. I've actually taken pictures on my phone while on vacation or doing somewhere, and then posted them on social media and had someone buy them because they're like, oh, that picture is super pretty. And they had no idea it was taken on a phone, but phones are very, very good. So I would recommend starting on your phone because you have it, and it takes really, really good photos. The big things that, do we have a few more minutes, Alicia, or are we running out of time? We're good? Okay, so if I could teach you 3 really important things for taking a good photo. So if you were like, I want to go out and take pictures today, what are something I could work on to take prettier pictures? Here's 3 tips for you that I would say are kind of your most important tips. And the first one is to make sure you have a subject. A lot of times we go places, and I am guilty of doing this too when I'm on vacation, and you'll walk up to somewhere, say you're on the beach somewhere, or you go down to Moab and you're in Arches National Park, and you're like, oh, this is super pretty. This is gorgeous. And you take your picture, you click, you're like, that was pretty. And then you go home and you look at the picture and you're like, well, it's not as pretty. And part of that is because when you're taking the picture, you can see everything around you, but your eyes are focusing on things. You can smell it, you can hear it, you can feel the wind, and there's a lot of other senses and emotions that go into that moment. And so for you to convey that moment in a camera is kind of hard. And so a lot of times we'll take pictures and we'll think, oh, well, that's not as pretty later because you're not experiencing it. And so when we're taking pictures and we really want to convey something pretty with a picture, we really need to make sure that we have a central focus point so that they do have something to focus on, because otherwise they're just looking at this scene that doesn't really have any grounding or reason for them to look at it because they don't have the same memory as you of being there. So making sure that you have a clear subject, whether you're taking a landscape photo or whether we're taking a picture of a pretty plant, like maybe we've got a pretty plant in our backyard and we're like, I want to take a picture of it. Well, what part about the plant is pretty? Like, are we taking a picture because there's pretty water droplets on the morning because the sprinklers ran overnight? Or are we taking a picture of the pretty flower that's blooming? Or maybe there's a ladybug or a caterpillar on one of the leaves, and that's what caught our eye. And so we want to make sure that we have a really clear subject. Because when someone looks at the picture, they're not like, oh, look, it's a plant in your garden. They're like, oh, look at the pretty water droplets on those petals. Or look at that pretty little caterpillar, right? So tip number 1 is to make sure that you have a very, very clear subject. And every time I take a picture, you say, what's my subject? And I do this with clients all the time, and with family photos and with weddings. What's the focal point of my image? What do I want people looking at? And how am I going to help them look there? And so there's a whole bunch of things that we're not going to have time to get into today, of tricks you can get to drag people's eye to certain parts of the image. But at the end of the day, we're trying to get people to look at our subject. And so that's the number 1 most important thing. The number 2 most important thing, I think, to have good photos is to have good light. And these aren't in specific order, but I think having pretty light is very, very important. And I think if you were going to go out and take pictures right now and you're like, oh, we did this cool class at 2:30, I want to go take pictures this afternoon, I would actually probably recommend waiting until what we call golden hour, which is 1 hour before sunset. Have you guys noticed that like right before sunset, the light gets really pretty? And like you look out at the grass and the grass is all backlit in your yard and it's like glowing in the sunset. Have you guys noticed that at all? And just how pretty everything looks at sunset? It's hard to take a bad picture at sunset, right? And so picking the right time of day or the right location, I think is very, very important. And obviously if we see that pretty caterpillar, then we want to take that picture now. But if we see a pretty flower right now, it's a lot prettier if we go out and take it with pretty light. So if we can wait till an hour, so golden hour is typically an hour before sunset or an hour after sunrise. What we want is we want the sun really low in the sky so we get those nice, pretty long shadows and the light gets warmer because the reason the light gets warmer is the sun is going through, the sunlight is going through more air. And as it comes in lower, it usually picks up more dust and more pollen and more pollution. And all those things make the air a little bit more yellow because dust is kind of yellowy and dirty, right? And so it makes that air a little bit warmer and it's just longer and traveling through more air. And so that's why we want to shoot those times of day. And I think if we do shoot at those times of day, you'll get prettier pictures than if you go out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And my wife will ask me, because every time we go on vacation, I'll be like, oh, well, there's this really pretty hike and I want to do it at 7:30 at night because it's prettier at 7:30 at night and I want to take some pictures. And she's like, well, but I want to go to bed at 8:30 at night. And I'm like, well, we're going to be hiking off the trail at 8:30 at night because going out at those times is a lot prettier light. So we want to make sure that we have a clear subject, right? And then we want to make sure that we have as pretty of light as possible. And the third thing that I would say, and this one's more directed towards people, but I think getting proper emotion is right. How many of you guys, when your parents have said, let's take a picture and we're doing family pictures and you stand there and you go like this? And you do your picture smile, right? And mom's like, if you don't smile for pictures, then I'm not gonna give you ice cream afterwards. And so you go, and you make your eyes even crazier and smilier. Some of you guys are looking at your moms right now, right? And so if we're taking pictures of people specifically, we want to get real emotion. And so if you're taking pictures of your friends, we don't want to look at your friends and say, okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, smile, click. Because then they're going to go, and they're going to give you their crazy face, right? Their crazy smile. And so taking pictures of people, and this applies to other things too, but people are an easy way to get emotion is we want to get real emotion. And so I think if you're going to take pictures of your family or your friends, then we want them, the biggest thing I try to do is make them not think about taking a picture. So I never count down and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, picture, 1, 2, 3, cheese. I just keep talking to people and then you try to engage them and talk to them and find common ground. And so like if I was taking your guys' family picture, I'd ask you guys like, what do you like to do? And some of you guys would probably say, oh, I like video games. And some of you guys would probably say, oh, I like gardening. And some of you guys would say, oh, I like riding my bike, right? And then I would talk to you about that. And we would talk about what video games you like, or we talk about like why you love riding your bike or where your favorite place to ride your bike is. And I think if you talk to people, you can kind of find that connection and then get a little bit of emotion. And the other thing is when you're taking pictures like people you know, you just got to kind of distract them and ask them, you know, how their day was. And then while they're getting more comfortable with this camera, so I'll sit here and I'll talk to people and I'll hold the camera like up here and we'll talk and they'll get used to the camera here, right? And as the camera's here and now it's part of it and we're talking and chit-chatting, and then we can take a few pictures and I might tell them to smile here or there for a little bit, but as we get them more comfortable or we tell a joke or two, I've got a joke that I tell in family photos all the time. It's totally like a dad boy joke, but why couldn't the toilet paper cross the road? Does anyone know? No, because it got stuck in the crack. No, they all just look at me. But I tell super silly, lame jokes. Hopefully that you guys smile. Now you guys are like, Mike has terrible jokes. But if we can like find something to break that ice and get people to get real emotions, because normally if you can get a real smile or a real laugh, or you can get even like a real serious look, you'll get a better photo with real emotion. So I would say that we want to not tell people to smile. No more 1, 2, 3 cheese. We talk to them about their favorite ice cream, or we talk to them about their favorite pizza, or we talk to them about how it's going to rain tomorrow and maybe they love rain. You know, we'll talk to them about things. Don't just tell them to smile at your camera. And then we go when there's pretty light. So evening is going to be a lot prettier for that. And then we make sure that we have a clear subject. And so there's something that when we're looking at this picture, we can say, oh, we're taking a picture of that tree or that flower or that person or that seagull. We want to make sure that we know what our subject is so that people, when people look at my picture, they know what the subject is too. And they realize what I'm trying to tell them. through the picture. So that would be some quick tips I'd tell you.
Okay, we have one more question, and this is our last question, guys. Olivia wants to know, what software would you recommend for editing pictures for a beginner?
For a beginner. So I would say that for the most part, you're probably going to be shooting on your phone or your parents' phone or your iPad when you're starting. And software, we're probably going to want something pretty cheap. I think the best app for editing, there are some great apps for editing, but there's an app called Snapseed. So like Snap and then Seeds. Alicia's heard of it. And it is an app that's actually made by Google, but you can get it on iPhones or iPads or on your Android phones. And it's free, and it's really, really good. It actually, Snapseed has every single feature that, like, I don't know if there's probably like 2 features that my program that I pay hundreds of dollars for has that Snapseed doesn't have. So Snapseed is very, very good at editing. You can change the color and the contrast in black and white, and you can make it brighter or darker, or you can crop it. There's so much you can do with Snapseed, and it's free. So that would be my recommendation, Olivia, would be Snapseed. It's a really, really good app, and it's free, and you can do a lot of things with it. So that would be my recommendation. Most of the things, if you're going for a computer, are going to cost money. If you wanted to spend a little bit more money, there's a company called Affinity that they make Affinity Photo, and I think it's like $20, and you can get it on your computer or your iPad or your phone, and it's very, very good as well. But honestly, Snapseed's every bit as good, and it's free. So I would use Snapseed personally.
Awesome. Okay, you guys. Well, that is the end of our 4-H in the Field. So thanks, Mike, for coming.
Oh, of course.
I don't even know how I met you. Was it at Anderson's?
I think so, because you used to work in Anderson's.
Yeah. So I
And I
worked
used
at
to work
Anderson's
next door to Anderson's first.
for like 2 years. So, anyway. Cool, guys. Well, as you guys exit the meeting, please be sure to say thank you in the chat or out loud, and we will see you Thursday. We're doing
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
What are you doing Thursday, Alicia?
We're doing a girl design software for NASA.
Oh, that's very cool.
So we've had lots of different ones. We had a dog trainer on here. We had an LED software person on here.
Very cool.
We have some aerospace engineers next week.
That's fun.
And like a girl who works with Ruli. She does the fitting for Ruli.
Oh, that's very cool too.
We've had all sorts of fun.
Line up. Those are always yeah.
Very fun. So anyway, cool. Well, I'm gonna.
Bye.
Oh.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Slowly, surely.
Thank you, Alicia.